There are certain things you remember from childhood, even if you're too young to fully understand them. You may not remember every word, you may not remember every detail, but you remember the feeling. I was less than 6 years old when I learned that money could change the temperature in a home. My dad owned a business, and when that business went under, it didn't just affect the balance sheet, it affected our family. There were arguments, there was stress, we lost our home. And thankfully, my grandfather Julius, the namesake of our company, stepped in to help us out. I was a kid who loved cartoons and sports. I didn't understand business risk, cash flow, debt, or financial planning, but I understood tension. And looking back now, after sitting across from couples for years, I see it differently. Most families aren't struggling because they don't care. They're struggling because no one ever taught them about money, let alone how to talk about it. That's what today's episode is about. Two people who love each other, two people building a family, two people making real money, but still operating like they're living two separate financial lives. Today's episode is called Two People, One Financial Life. And here's the frank truth. It's hard to build one family future when you're living two separate financial lives. So today, we're going to talk about why most money fights are not really about money, why both spouses need to know the numbers, and how couples can stop running financial plays separately. You ready? Let's get into it.
Brought to you by Julius Wealth Advisors.
Let's get into the fight every couple thinks they are having. The trip, the house project, the credit card bill. The dinner where one person says, "Do we really need the extra appetizer?" And the other person says, "Can't we just enjoy our life for 5 minutes?" On the surface, it looks like a spending conversation, but most of the time, it's not. You see, when I sit with couples, I see the exact same pattern almost every single time. One spouse is the saver and the other is the spender. And honestly, it's one of the most incredible patterns I see in what I do. Maybe that's why they say opposites attract. But there is no need to judge anyone here. This is not a character flaw. This is not the responsible spouse versus the irresponsible spouse. This is wiring. This is history. This is what money has meant to you long before you got married. One spouse looks at money and thinks safety. The other looks at money and thinks freedom. One says, "Should we really do this?" The other says, "We work hard. What is the point of living if we can't enjoy it?" And the truth is, the saver is not automatically right and the spender is not automatically wrong. Most of the time, both people are reacting to a story. Maybe one spouse grew up around stress, scarcity, and uncertainty. Maybe the other grew up believing life is meant to be enjoyed, not constantly delayed. Then they get married. They build a life, they have kids, they make real money. And now they think they are arguing about the trip, the house, or the tax bill. They're not. They're both asking the same question, but in different ways. Are we okay? This is why money conversations get so emotional, because the number is not just a number. The number means something. To one spouse, spending money may feel like danger. To the other spouse, not spending money may feel like missing life. The exact same dollars, totally different meaning. And if you do not understand what money means to your spouse, you'll keep arguing about the wrong thing. You will think the issue is the vacation, but the real issue may be safety. You will think the issue is the renovation, but the real issue may be partnership. The funny thing is, this always reminds me of one of my favorite scenes from White Men Can't Jump. There's a great scene where Gloria, played by Rosie Perez, says she is thirsty. So Billy, Woody Harrelson, goes and does the logical thing. He gets her a glass of water. Makes sense, right? She said she was thirsty. He got water. Problem solved. except it was not solved because she did not want him to just listen to the words. She wanted him to hear her and understand what she meant. And this is what happens with couples and money all the time. One spouse says, we should slow down. The other hears, you never let us enjoy anything. Maybe what they really mean is, I need to feel safe. One spouse says, let's enjoy this. The other hears, you do not care about the future. But maybe what they really mean is, I do not want our whole life to be delayed. Same words, again, totally different meaning. And this is probably why clients joke that I am part advisor, part marriage counselor. They come in stuck on a major decision, and one spouse sees it one way, the other sees it completely differently. Then we put the numbers on the table, walk through the trade-offs, and suddenly the room changes. Not because I'm taking sides, because the numbers give the conversation somewhere to land. And more than once, someone has laughed and said, I think you just saved us 3 sessions with a marriage counselor. That is why the spreadsheet alone cannot fix the conversation, but the spreadsheet still matters because you cannot build a plan on feelings alone, and you cannot build a marriage on numbers alone. You need both. You need the story and you need the data. That is where real financial planning starts, not with judgment, not with blame, with clarity. Because the goal is not for one spouse to win. The goal is for both spouses to understand. What are they really trying to protect? What are they really trying to build? And what trade-offs are they willing to sacrifice to get there together? And when both people understand the story and the data, the conversation changes. That is how you start building one financial life. But here is where this gets even harder. It is one thing to have 2 different money stories. It is another thing when only one person actually knows the numbers. And that is where a lot of couples quietly drift from partnership into something more dangerous. One person becomes the manager and the other becomes the passenger. That is what we'll unpack next, right after this.
Start building wealth by choice, not chance, with Julius Wealth Advisors. At Julius Wealth Advisors, your progress and your gains are our measure of success. Experience personal attention to every detail. We create strong financial plans, use time-tested investment strategies, and offer personal coaching to navigate life's inevitable turns. At Julius Wealth Advisors, we provide clients with a concierge experience in a boutique environment. Join us and let our experts guide you on a collaborative path to financial freedom with sound money management principles. Develop your tailored wealth playbook and help secure your financial future. Start strong with Julius Wealth Advisors. Visit juliuswealthadvisors.com or call 201-408-4644. Email info@juliuswealthadvisors.com. Julius Wealth Advisors, where building wealth is by choice, not chance.
Now here is the second pattern I see all the time. In almost every household, one spouse becomes the main manager of the finances. They know the accounts, they know the bills, they know the moving pieces. And honestly, that is not automatically a problem. That is real life. Every family has to divide and conquer. One person may handle the finances, one person may handle the kids' schedules, the family calendar, and the day-to-day logistics. Marriage is a team sport. Not everyone has the same job. So the issue is not that one spouse is more involved in the finances than the other. The issue is when one spouse is the only one who understands the finances. That is where delegation turns into risk. Because if one spouse is the manager and the other spouse has no idea where things stand, you do not really have a shared financial life. You have a manager and you have a passenger. And listen, being the passenger may feel easier. You trust your spouse. You're busy with your own responsibilities. You may think they're better at this than I am. And maybe that's true, but trust does not mean you should be flying blind. Because if something happens or if a major decision comes up, both spouses still need to understand the plan. What do we own? What do we owe? Where is the money going? And what are we trying to build? And importantly, who do I call if something happens? That is the part that matters. You do not need both spouses logging into every single account. You do not need both spouses managing every single detail. But both spouses should understand the family's basic financial picture. That's why when we bring on a new family at Julius Wealth Advisors, I strongly prefer both spouses be part of the initial conversations. Not because both people need to take care of every single detail equally. They probably will not, and that's perfectly fine. But both people should hear the plan, both people should understand the basic numbers, and both people should understand the priorities. And both should know who is there to help guide them when life throws them a curveball. Because the goal is not to make both spouses do the same job. The goal is to make sure both spouses know the same playbook. And I've seen what happens when they do. The room changes. Sometimes the numbers are better than they expected, and you can almost feel the relief. Sometimes the numbers are worse than they expected, and it creates a needed dose of reality. But either way, knowing is better than guessing, because once both spouses see the full picture, it is no longer a debate based only on memory, emotion, or who has the stronger opinion. It's their data. The accounts are the accounts, the debt is the debt, the cash flow is the cash flow. No shame, no guessing. Just truth. And truth is useful. You can work with truth. Because without a shared understanding, the whole system depends on one person always being available. And that's fragile. The spouse handling the finances may feel like they're carrying the full weight alone, while the spouse who is less involved may feel like they're just trusting the process. But without shared clarity, both people are exposed. One person has too much burden, the other has too little visibility. Neither one is ideal. The solution is not perfection. It is not both people doing everything. It is shared clarity. At a minimum, both spouses should be able to say, here is what we have, here is what we owe, here is what we are building, and here is who we trust to help us. That alone changes the conversation, because now the conversation is not based on guessing. It is not based on who remembers what. It is not based on the stronger opinion. It is based on the plan. It becomes more productive. It becomes less about blame and more about direction. Here's where we are. Here is where we want to go. Here is the plan to get us there. Now, let's make this decision together. That is the shift from one person carrying the whole burden to both people understanding the plan. From financial blindness to shared clarity. From manager and passenger to two spouses building one financial life together. Because the problem is not that you play different positions. The problem is when you're not on the same field, chasing the same goal at the same time. And that brings us to Bo Knows.
Get your money right. If you got the appetite. Get your money right. If you want to get another insight. Win big while setting the score. But there's something that I gotta tell you, Bo knows.
All right, it's time for Bo Knows. And today we're going to the World Cup, which is actually very funny because I'll be honest with you, I'm not usually a big soccer guy. Give me football, baseball, basketball, I'm in. But football, that has usually not been my lane. But this World Cup, honestly, I've been loving it. The energy, the crowd, the camaraderie of people coming together. But I'll also admit something. I still do not fully understand offsides. It's very confusing to me. I get the general idea. You can't just hang out behind the defense and cherry pick waiting for an easy goal. There has to be timing. There has to be awareness. There has to be alignment. And apparently, if your shoulder, your knee, or maybe even your left eyebrow is over the wrong spot, the flag goes up, the goal comes off the board, and every single person in the stadium loses their mind. But here is what I do understand. You can be talented, you can be fast, you can even put the ball in the net. But if you are not in the right position at the right time, the goal does not count. That is marriage and money. One spouse may be ready to go, the other may be trying to hold the line. One spouse might be thinking, let's do this. The other may be thinking, wait, are we actually set up for this? Neither person has to be wrong. But if the timing is off, if the communication is off, if one person thinks the play is happening and the other does not even know the ball was passed, you're going to be flagged for offsides. The argument is the flag. The surprise is the flag. The resentment is the flag. So here is your Bono's rule for the day. Stay on side together. Different positions are fine. Different instincts are fine. But you need the same field, the same goal, and the same timing. Because in money, just like in soccer, being ahead is not always the same as being aligned. So folks, please stay on side together. Let's bring this episode home. As always, I want to leave you with 3 questions. And if you are married, engaged, or building a life with someone, I would not just listen to these. As Gloria told Billy and White Men Can't Jump, you need to hear them. Question number 1. Do you know your spouse's money story or only their money habits? Because those are 2 different things. You may know they save. You may know they spend. You may know they worry. You may know they avoid. But do you know why? That is where the real conversation starts. Question 2. Do you both of you know where your family stands? Not down to every penny, but do both of you understand the basics? What do you own? What do you owe? What are you building? And who you would call if something happened? That's exactly where real partnership starts. Question 3. Are you staying on side together? Or is one of you making a financial run the other does not even know about? That's the big one. You can have different strengths, you can have different responsibilities, you can play different positions. But you need one shared direction because it's hard to build one family future when you're living 2 separate financial lives. And that is really this entire episode. The point of money is not to win an argument. The point of money is to build a life. And if you're married, that life should be built together. If this episode sounds like your household, the answer is not to blame each other. The answer is to get the full picture on the table. That is a big part of what we do at Julius Wealth Advisors. We help high-earning families organize their full 360-degree picture, understand the trade-offs, and build one shared plan. Not just the investments, not just the accounts, the full picture. So give us a call at 201-408-4644, email info@juliuswealth.com, or visit www.juliuswealthadvisors.com. Because money is a tool. It's not the goal. My grandfather Julius taught me that through the way he lived. When my family needed help, he stepped in. And that shaped me. It shaped this firm. It shaped the way I think about wealth. The goal is not just to have more. The goal is to use what you have to build a more secure, intentional, and meaningful life with the people you love most. So until next time, be smart, be intentional, and keep building your wealth by choice, not chance. I'm Jason Blumstein, and this is the Big Bo Show.
Thank you for tuning into the Big Bo Show.
Let's take a little flower and turn it into a tree. 'Cause we're harnessing the power that has been passed down centuries. Life in a game, fortune and fame. You're gonna win over time, you know. It's hard to attain, but you're on your way. You're listening to the Big Bo
Julius Wealth Advisors.